Good afternoon. We are here to talk about automation, and we're talking about automation as a way of making it easier to run your business and your startup and reduce costs. And my panelists are Todd Olsen, co-founder and CEO of Pendo, and Glancy, who's founder and CEO of ZenBusiness. And they do very different things. We're going to start with Todd Olsen. You work with companies and help them introduce automation into their processes. So talk about how that works.
Yeah, thank you. So, look, when you think about automation, there's a lot of areas that you could focus on. But for me, one of the things that we look at is what are very high volume, low value activities happening in your business where automation would be a potential good fit. And one of the things that we do with companies, first, a lot of companies spend a lot of time capturing data and how their users use their products. And traditional methods required you to instrument and write a bunch of code, and that's painful. So one of the first things we automated is once you install us, it actually automatically captures everything, saving developers time. And one of the things that we've observed is like there's just not enough software developers in the world, so if you can do things that free up software developers to build features, that's ultimately a really good area. I think the second thing that I like to focus on is actually onboarding new users and applications. Nearly everyone has this problem of first use. I'm sure JC would talk a little bit about it. Like when someone uses your platform the first time, how do you get in? How do you show them around? How do you teach them without involving a human? That's one of the areas that we focus a lot. So,
what level of cost reduction are you looking at being able to achieve?
Well, I think the cost reduction really depends on the task, and it depends on how much time the humans are actually doing it, and it depends on which humans are doing it. So let's use my two examples. If I'm saving a software engineer's time, I'm potentially saving a lot of money because software engineers are highly paid roles. If I'm saving a customer service time, I'm potentially saving a little less money depending on how much time it takes. So I think you got to look at who's performing those functions within a corporation, how expensive they are, and how frequent it is. But I think the other way of looking at it isn't just like cost savings. Is it actually a better experience? And right now, when people are using software applications, they don't want to wait for a human being to start using it. What if they're like done, their work for the day, they're at home, they want to check something out in the evening. Last thing they want to do is like wait till tomorrow at 2 p.m. to jump on a call when they're busy. I think the other thing about automation is it allows the company to meet the user where they are and kind of service them whenever it's convenient for them. And in a world where people are remote, people are working from, Portugal, and they want to do things at different times of the day, making sure that you have automation to kind of meet those users where they are and when they are, I think it's really important. So it's not just about cost savings, I'd say it's also about delivering a better experience.
Just a very quick follow-up question to that. I was wondering, would it be possible to do your business, say, 10 years ago, or is the technology necessary? The technology we have today, was that necessary to really do what you do?
Is it possible to do 10 years ago? No, it probably wasn't possible to do 10 years ago. And I think we talk a lot about like what are the shifts in the world. And I know like AI is obviously the hot thing or the it thing right now. But what kind of the predecessor to AI was really the analytics movement and data movement. And that was really powered by cloud compute. And I mean, the reality is like AWS, Google, all of those companies, Microsoft, the amount of money it costs to save data is so small today than it was, say, 10 years ago, that it means we have a lot more data that can provide automation and intelligence for all sorts of apps. So the AI thing wouldn't happen if we don't have this massive data source. And that was all fueled by cloud compute. So I think that was, like, to me, the predecessor that enabled all this to happen.
JC, let's look at your business, ZenBusiness, based out of Austin, Texas.
That's right.
And what you do is you work with small businesses. It could be plumbers, it could be electricians, and startups and different companies.
Right.
And what you do is take over tasks that really slow them down, or the things that they're not really familiar with, like bookkeeping and being in regulatory compliance that kind of thing.
The gross business stuff, as we like to
yeah,
call it.
gross. And you work with 600,000
That's right.
small businesses. That's
Yep.
amazing. How do you get to that number with a startup like you have?
Yeah, I mean, to get to that level of scale and to put it in perspective for everyone here, like, while we have 600,000 small business customers, we only ever really speak to 5% of them across phone, email, and live chat. And so kind of like, piggybacking a little bit off the question you asked to Todd is like, what we think about with respect to automation for our customers is the three things that like Amazon always talks about, which is time, convenience, and speed, right? And we're always constantly thinking about those three vectors with respect to how we think about automation. And so when you're dealing with that, that large number of customers, obviously everyone has a lot of different needs. But really it comes down to not expecting to be automated 100% from day one, but being able to pick up the phone. A lot of automation happens manually by an iterative, deliberate, learned approach by talking to your customers, really empathizing with them, so that you really understand their pain points, and then you can take that even further with like quantitative research to then really understand deeply like how to start to automate on a process by process approach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 80% of your customers are actually solo practitioners.
First-time solopreneurs.
First time,
yeah.
Okay, so they're starting a business. And, an example would be a truck driver who owns their own truck.
Right.
And I had a friend who did this, and I was amazed that it isn't just driving the truck.
No.
There's tons of paperwork. There's interstate travel and regulatory compliance issues. It's really complex.
Yeah, I mean, it's a the dirty little secret here is in America. I'm not speaking for the EU necessarily. A lot of folks, small business owners who've never done it before, they think that forming their company is just this one-time thing, right? You do the paperwork and it just kind of goes into the government and you never see it again, which is unfortunately not the case, right? Just like you have to do your taxes every single year as an individual, not only do you have to do those for business, but you also have to do them for the compliance of the business, which is an extra added, kind of pain point for the customers, and something that we actually innovated on with automation because no other company was automating the process of compliance on an annual basis. It sounds so boring, I know, but the thing is when it's just done for you, it's like magic.
I wanted to ask you both this question and get a response from each of you on it. We've had this tremendous shift to people working at home, and I wonder how that affects each of your businesses.
Great question. I'll let
Todd,
you go first.
Can maybe start with that.
Affects our business?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think we used to rely on what was called management by walking around, which is we would walk around, we'd see people doing things, we've had little impromptu.
It's effective, isn't it? I mean,
it worked. Well, that's how I learned how to manage. When I started my career, and that was super effective. Well, now you get to a point where there is no such thing as management by walking around because no one. Well, you could walk around. It'd be like your living room.
You're
right?
walking around an empty office.
Exactly. So now I think the modern management by walking around is really a set of dashboards and toolkits. It's like looking at data and understanding like survey data from what your employees are saying. It's looking at outcome data, like what are people producing. It's chat systems, video systems. It's one of the challenges is people don't like to interrupt people because you don't know like where they are. When you're walking around, you know they're at their desk. So I think there's a lot of hesitation to interrupt. So I think what you're trying to do is just use more signals and analytics to inform, like, hey, I can go reach out to this person and check in on them and see how they're doing. So I think you need a set of different tools to be a manager, and I think we've seen a lot of change there. Actually, one example that's actually boring stuff like JC's talking about is the federal government, when you take a job, relaxed the requirement to show an ID for the I-9. So that's an area where we had to build whole new processes about how you onboard new employees, and it was all very, very electronic. We had to set new onboarding. We ship a laptop, you open it up, and it walks you through your entire onboarding, whereas we would always have an IT person sit with you and do it. So there's like simple examples of how whole new processes need to get created that actually some of it we still do today, actually. So
Yeah, that brought back a lot of good memories. Well, you would call it what, management by walking around?
Yeah.
In everything in life, there's a trade-off, right? And I think you said you've been around 10 years?
10 years.
Yeah, and so we were still at March 6th of 2020, kind of a week before the whole world shut down. We had an awesome office in downtown Austin, Texas. It was in a rock quarry with squirrels and birds outside. And we had 30 people in the office. We shut it down that day. 6 months later, we had 350 people. So we went from 30 people to 350 in 6 months because, as you can imagine, everyone in America, sheltering in place, at home, people are getting laid off from their jobs, they're sitting at home, they're bored, they're not knowing what to do, and all of a sudden the stimulus checks start hitting, right? So people get that money and they say, hey, I'm going to take a leap of faith here and a risk and try out that thing I always dreamed about. So our growth rate went like hyperbolic. And so the experience that we went through in terms of how fast we had to learn to onboard everyone as fast as we could, not only, customers, but also employees. I mean, I remember our IT director was literally sitting behind him with a wall of MacBooks that he was having to provision and send out. And so, the trade-off there was like, it allowed us to recruit the best talent from everywhere to help us grow and scale really quickly, where we couldn't have got them, just in Austin geographically. But what we missed out on was the serendipity of, a CS person having had a problem that day with a customer on the phone and going up to one of the engineers and saying like, hey, what the heck's going on with this? So we management by walking around, I like to think of it as like problem solving by serendipity. You kind of miss a lot of that, which is unfortunate, but we got through it and we learned a lot, and we implemented kind of the same processes and procedures that he was mentioning.
Let me ask this question. I also think it applies to both of you, which is when people hear the word automation, they think of people being put out of work, which is a theory that goes back to Ned Ludd and the Luddites, right, smashing machines in the 18th century. What do you say when people say, well, if you automate your business, you're going to put people out of work? And with JC, I mean, they're letting go of the bookkeeper or somebody, right, a part-time employee or somebody like that.
Well, I mean, on average, every small business hires around, I think, 3.2 people. So, again, trade-off, right? It's like, maybe there's some automation that puts a potential employee of ZenBusiness, we don't have to hire an extra employee, but by using the automation, we're able to start 600,000 businesses, which then employ, a 3.2x that.
Interesting point.
Right? So that's how I think about it. It's like,
Of course, if ZenBusiness grows, you're also hiring people. Right?
Exactly, exactly. So I think it's a net benefit for everyone.
How many employees do you have?
Right now, 600.
600?
Yeah.
All right. Todd, what do you say to this question?
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm going to be boring here, and just I think what we're seeing in terms of automation often aren't tasks that people like doing. And I mean, I think about we'll do things like we'll notice that our support team's taking calls for like the same type of thing.
Right.
And then we'll automate it, and then those calls will no longer happen. And like we still have the same number of support people. They're just spending their time on different activities. So I like to think that most of the work that we're doing and most of the automation work is freeing people up to do better work, is to make them more informed.
Yeah, so I'll ask a question to the audience. Like, show of hands, who here likes doing paperwork? Zero.
I don't see one hand.
Either they're on their phones.
That was more of a wave, I think, than anything else.
How about this? Are there areas that should not be automated of any business? Is there a rule of thumb about that? That's better being done by somebody who's an employee with a personal touch, maybe?
I would say the answer is no, because what automation enables is humanity to unlock the full value of human creativity and potential. Right, and that's where I'd love for everyone to feel empowered to try and get to, is like to be able to put a pure reflection of their humanity out into the world, and I think that automation starts to enable that over time. whereas like having to do these monotonous, mundane tasks isn't really fun for anybody.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer it. Maybe there's a couple of areas that I think don't lend themselves as well to automation. One is like innovation, like truly innovating and coming up with new. I mean, creativity is something that's very, very hard to frankly automate because it's so random and it's unpredictable, and that's where I think AI fails. I mean, AI is only trained on what it knows. So if nothing's ever been done, how could it ever replicate it? So that's an area where I think that personally isn't necessarily ripe and never will be. One of the examples, this is kind of a fun example, but I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Milk Bar. It's a cake company in New York.
Yeah. Crack pie.
She doesn't frost the edges of the cake. So if you asked AI to give you a picture of a cake, there would be frosting on the edges, right? Mm-hmm. She was the first person to ever come up with the idea, hey, let's not frost the edges. So that's an area where you can't automate someone coming up with that. It's just pure innovation. So that's one. I think the second area is, and I don't know about you folks or anyone in the audience, but every once in a while, I like a slightly pampered experience. And if I'm going to like the Four Seasons, and no, I'm not staying at the one here, I want someone to like really help me. And I don't want to like have to like chat in something and then re-clarify and then change I misspell something, it screws up. No, I want like, if I'm paying that kind of money and I'm on vacation, I want an amazing experience, and I don't want it to be automated. Actually, I want it to feel very personalized to me. What are you doing? What do you want to do? Because sometimes, like, I personally enjoy that. Now, not everyone may, but I know I do.
As a writer, I do take some comfort in the fact that I get to see a piece generated by ChatGPT that I really thought was well written. So as far as I can say, people are really better writers than machines right now. But
I think your job is protected.
That could change. We only have like a minute left. Is there a way that you can get customer feedback into the automation process if something's not working? Maybe this applies more to JC.
I want to hear what he has to say first, because I got a lot to say, but curious.
Well, you have to say it in 43 seconds.
No, look, I think this is an area where customer feedback can be really helpful. Like, if you automate something, at the end of the automation, just put a simple thumbs up, thumbs down. Did it work or did it not? Collect that data and use that data to inform whether you should improve it. That's a really simple hack that anyone can do at the end of some level of automation.
Yeah, and I think there's 20 seconds left here, but I mean, I think also doing as much work as you can before you build or automate really, really helps the output of that. And the way that we do that, or we think about it, is we qualify, we talk to customers, and then we quantify through large-scale surveys to customers, and then we validate what the customers say, and then we triangulate it across multiple data sources before we even inject it into the product to give us the best, highest level probability of success. So.
We are out of time. Why don't we have a round of applause for Todd Olsen, co-founder and CEO of Pendo, and JC Glancy, founder and CEO of ZenBusiness. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.